Hello there, my name is Caitlin. I am a registered dietitian. I'm also a culinary nutritionist and trained chef, and I am working with Health Fairs Direct today through Be More Health Coaching. And we are going to be talking about nutrition and healthy families. All right, so the first thing I want you to do is I want you to think back to when you were a kid sitting at the dinner table, and I want you to just take a second and think about what was on your plate. All right, now think about, was it a balanced meal? Was there protein? Was there starch? Were there vegetables? Did you have fruit? Did you drink milk often? A lot of times what we know about nutrition is what we've learned from our families. And for those of us that were lucky enough to have a family meal every night, we might have more of an emphasis on sitting down and making a healthier meal for our families because it's how we were raised. But if that's not how we were raised, it might not be so much of a priority. So today I want to explain to you how nutrition really changes throughout our lifespan, and we'll kind of look at that. And then I'm going to show you different tools and techniques that you can use to start making your family a little bit. Before I want to start with a little bit of startling statistics. And I like to start with statistics because they're facts, and you will see that there is a problem. Hello, hello. Hello. We just got started, so so if you have any questions, just type them into the chat. All right, so I am reading off some statistics about different diseases related to age. So from 2 to 19 years old, 19% of that population, that age population, are obese, which is insane because we should not have nearly 20% of our children being obese. Next, over 40% of adults in the United States are considered obese. Every year, we look at the causes of death, and heart disease is the leading cause of death year after year. One person dies every 36 seconds due to heart disease or cardiovascular disease. And 34 million Americans have diabetes, 95% of them being type 2 diabetes. What all of these numbers have in common, though, is that all of these things, the obesity, the heart disease, the diabetes, are all related to food intake. And a lot of those diseases can be prevented by raising healthy kids and adopting a healthy lifestyle. All right, I love to start this presentation with this quote because it is exactly what I was talking about. If you don't come from a healthy family, so if you didn't grow up coming from a healthy family, make sure a healthy family comes from you. So we're going to do that today. And like I said, we are going to go ahead and get started with just the different lifespans, life cycle. So Elizabeth, I see you're the only one on, which is good or bad. I don't know if it's good or bad for you, but I'll ask you some questions and you can type them into the chat, or you can just not, it's up to you. Elizabeth, do you have any kids?
Yes. I have an 11-year-old daughter.
All right, well, perfect. I will try and I'll graze over the younger ages and we'll get more to the older ages. All right, so under a year old, this is when we start to kind of introduce new foods to our kids. We're starting solid foods. We need to make sure that we are aware of foods that are choking hazards. A lot of times the baby foods that we are giving them, such as baby cereals, are fortified with iron, calcium, and oftentimes vitamin D. Under a year old is also when we usually give our children vitamin D supplementation because a lot of babies don't get enough vitamin D. And then we move into a little bit older, the 1 to 2 years old. And this is when children start to get a strong will. I don't know if your daughter Elizabeth was a picky eater when she was very little, but I have one right now, and they get an opinion and they decide if they like foods or they don't like foods. Welcome, Michelle. So it is important for 1 to 2 year olds, but also for all children. It's a good rule of thumb to introduce a food several different times before a child decides if they don't like it. Actually, the FDA recommends that we recommend a food 8 times. Okay, Elizabeth said her daughter was less picky at that age. Oh, my camera hates when I move very quickly. All right, so this is also the age where we start to teach about hygiene, washing hands. And then another thing that I am going to touch on, hi Janet, welcome, is making sure that we are limiting juice intake. Juice, although a lot of school systems offer that as a side or an accompaniment with many meals, that's because schools have to meet a certain standard for how many fruits and vegetables they feed each child. So that's why in school systems you see a lot of juice, because juice is cheap and it's a lot cheaper than doing a fresh or canned fruit. So kind of explaining to your children as they get a little bit older that juice really isn't a great way to hydrate. All right, so then we get to the little bit older. So everyone that has just hopped on, my name is Caitlin. I'm a dietitian. I'm also a trained chef and a culinary nutritionist. And we're kind of, right now, we're going to go through the lifespan. And then we'll get into how to start making healthier choices. But one of the things when I'm talking about the lifespan, and I'm going to start talking about that with the 2 to 3 year olds, is how many of each food group certain like you should be, your kids and adults, as an adult, you should be eating, because a lot of these numbers are, we consume way more than this. All right, so now that everyone's up to speed, type into the chat if you have any questions and I'll kind of quiz you throughout as well. All right, so when we're getting to the 2 to 3 year old age, again, we're very opinionated. It's really important to focus on different colors and really offer a variety of foods. 2 to 3 is when kids really start to develop tastes and preferences. So limiting a lot of sweets, because clearly those are delicious. They release serotonin, they make us feel good. Just, you know, not having those as an option for everything. If you do have a picky eater, getting them involved in food choices. So offering your child, Sarah, do you want carrots or do you want broccoli? Letting them choose. All right, and then using positive reinforcement. Elizabeth was on here first, and I was telling her I have 2 sons, and one of which is an extremely picky eater. And I have to use positive reinforcement. If I get him to try a food, that is a praise, because at least trying it is him, you know, going in with an open mind. And the FDA, when I went to research, you know, how much of every food group that people need, it actually recommends that you allow children to try foods up to 8 times before they decide they really don't like it. All right, so kids in this age group should get anywhere from 2 to 3 cups of dairy a day. I usually, as a dietitian, if the child is of normal weight, would use a less fat option, like a low fat, 2%, 1%, or skim milk, just depending. Same thing with yogurt. Protein. This might blow your mind, but a 2 to 3 year old only needs 2 ounces of protein a day. So please don't panic when your child or grandchild is literally only taking 3 or 4 bites of their protein, because they only need 2 ounces a day. And if they are getting dairy, they are getting protein from the dairy as well. And then they should be getting 3 ounces of grains, and whole grains are the best option for them. Now we're moving to 4 to 8 year olds. This is when they're kind of out of your care. Just because I do have some people that have hopped on a little bit later. Do you guys have kids or grandkids? Do you want kids? I could give you one of mine. I'm going to give you the naughty one though, because one of them is definitely worse than the other. I'm just kidding, but I'm just curious. Do you guys have kids? And if so, what age? Because I will, you know, maybe touch more on that. Juliet has a 4-year-old and she is 23 weeks pregnant. Well, congratulations. We are also going to touch on pregnancy needs. All right, so
8-year-old around me.
Okay. All right.
She'll be 8 in August.
All right. Well, that's great. So the good thing is with these kids, you can really get them involved in the kitchen. And I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I have a plastic knife they use. I had cantaloupe the other night and they use the melon baller. Just get them involved in the kitchen. This is when we begin to teach kids about nutrition, because school does not. The emphasis they put on eating healthy is very little. They learn very little about what foods are good for us. And a lot of times schools actually are kind of show bad examples, because a few years ago, I used to volunteer by going into different schools and teaching about nutrition. And I was there at breakfast time, and I noticed that one of the kids was eating a Rice Krispie treat from the free breakfast. And I went to the teacher and I'm like, Rice Krispie treats? And she was like, it counts as a cereal. So it is not good that our school systems do things like Rice Krispie treats and Pop-Tarts, because that's what kids grow up thinking should be breakfast. So our job is to kind of teach them, that is food, but we need to be eating maybe better choices when you do have a choice. So from that 4 to 8-year-olds, this is going to also blow your minds again. They only need 4 ounces of protein a day. If they are super active, those needs might be a little bit higher, but the protein needs are not that big. So if your child doesn't finish their plate, that's okay. They don't have to. We don't want kids to think that they have to finish every bite on their plate, because that can lead to later in life becoming overweight, if that is always a habit, eating when you're not hungry, or eating to a point where you're uncomfortable. Kids in this age range need about 2.5 cups of dairy per day. All right, so then we have 9 to 13-year-olds. This is when these kids should be in the kitchen. I also run a program through the YMCA where I am located. I am in Waco, Texas. So hello, I know you guys are on the East Coast, but this is a great age to get them cooking. It uses math skills. It helps them with independence. And it is a known fact that if somebody is cooking and involved in the meal, they are more likely to at least try it. And at least having an open mind and going into it and trying it is a good way to start eating healthier. All right, so this is when protein needs for different genders change. So if you have a girl that's in this age range, they need about 5 ounces of protein, and boys need about 6 ounces of protein, which again is very little. One chicken breast is usually anywhere between 5 to 7 ounces of protein. So that is a lot. Now, I know that growing children have higher needs, and they'll kind of go through ebb and flows with growth spurts about how much food they eat. Another thing we teach this age group is kind of how to listen to hunger versus satiety cues that are saying, am I really hungry, or am I just bored, or am I just sad, or am I watching a show? Really asking kids to stop, think, am I really hungry, or am I just eating to eat? And as adults, we don't do that either. I mean, I know sometimes I don't do that. So it's good to kind of teach them, stop when you're full, eat when you're hungry. And we lose that somewhere between being a baby and this age. All right, and this is a good time I see someone ask a question. I will answer it in 1 second. But this is a good time to keep processed foods limited, because at the very beginning of this, before most of you were on, I was reading some statistics, and between the ages of 2 and 18 years old, nearly 20% of that population is obese in the United States, which is insane that we have about 20% of our children being obese. Now, I went on to read more statistics, but obesity it's not just being overweight. You're at a higher rate or higher risk for heart disease, which is the #1 cause of death every year. You're at a higher rate for certain cancers. You're at a higher risk of getting diabetes. So teaching kids these fundamental things, like not eat when you're not hungry, will really help them later in life. Does dehydration come across as hunger? Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to get to hydration later and I'll touch more on that, but yes. And for adults, us too. I do a whole class or a whole presentation on mindful eating and listening to your body, kind of teaching ourselves how to at what point do we start eating? At what kind of hunger? It's like thinking about food or when your stomach's growling. But anyways, I recommend kind of drinking throughout the day, and we'll talk about dehydration later and how that works. All right, so this a little bit older population of kids emphasize the importance of healthy foods, which I was just saying, teaching that half the grains that they're eating should be whole grains. So whole grains are going to come from breads, pastas, cereals that are all whole wheat, 100% whole wheat if you can. And that those healthy grains, the pastas, the whole grain pasta, whole grain bread, all of that actually helps lower our cholesterol levels later in life. So getting them in the habit of choosing brown rice over white rice and whole wheat pasta over white pasta, it will help them have digestive health. It helps prevent certain cancers. It helps keep us full longer, so we're less likely to need to eat as quickly. Choosing that whole grain is a really good thing to teach them. Boys need about 6.5 ounces of protein and girls need about 5 ounces, and then they need about 3 cups of dairy. Now, all I need is a yes or a no in the chat. You don't have to give me the answers. But do you know how many servings of fruit and vegetable a day your kids need? Or you don't have to type into the chat if you're embarrassed, because sometimes I forget. I'll be doing these presentations and I do this for a living, so don't be embarrassed if you don't know. Okay, so I like to put this little chart in here. Let's see if I can skip it that way. Okay, there we go. All right, so this shows age cups of fruits and vegetables that each age group needs. And that's great. It is hard to get. And like I said before, some of you guys hopped on, a lot of times at schools, both my kids are in preschool. My son is going to start kindergarten. A lot of times juice is what's given because fruit is expensive. And so schools will offer juice, and juice is not a great source of fruit, although it does count as a source of fruit because you are getting some vitamins and minerals from that. It just doesn't fill us up, and it has no fiber. So it's not the best choice of fruit. All right, so then we're moving into the age of independence when you're finally out on your own. And this is when I'm giving nutrition education, I am talking about meal planning, teaching people how to meal prep and how to cook meals that are quick and fast and healthy and pretty inexpensive, because usually in your early 20s, the beginning of your 30s, you don't have a ton of expendable income to go to Whole Foods. I don't know if you guys have a Whole Foods near you, but we call it whole paycheck. So that's kind of what I focus on. Type into the chat, have any of you guys cooked with me before? Because I've done several cooking demonstrations for you. But usually my cooking demonstrations are everything I cook. Each individual item is less than 30 minutes. That's kind of what I pride myself on, because no one wants to, after working, cook all day or cook all night. All right, so and this is insane. This is when we get to this protein thing. People push protein, low carb, eat protein. Well, when you're in your 20s, I mean, it really depends on your height and weight and all that stuff, but usually women need about 5.5 ounces of protein and men need about 6 ounces of protein. Protein is, unless if you're really bodybuilding or you are going through a very serious illness where your body needs to heal, or you just had a surgery, protein can only be absorbed to a certain amount. Anything extra is going to just be extra calories and turn into fat, just like sugar would, because our body, it doesn't just store up. If you eat a bunch of protein, it's not like your muscles are going to get huge. So eating a ton of protein isn't going to really do much for you. And then we move into the like real adults, 30s to 50s. We need about a cup and a half. I say we because I fall into that category. We need about a cup and a half to 2 cups of fruit a day, 2.5 to 3 cups of vegetables, 3 cups of dairy, which I definitely don't get. I need to work on that. And then women need 5 ounces of protein. Men need somewhere around 6. And now for older population, oh, I didn't write anything on that one. I can't see behind this. Hold on one second, guys. Okay, and then pregnancy. I got it. All right, so I did write something on this. I just didn't know that I called it 51 and plus. All right, so 51 and plus, it's really like when we're getting anytime after 50, our muscles are beginning to lose muscle mass. We're probably losing some bone density. As we get later in our 60s, 70s, especially 80s, and God willing 90s, our needs calorically and protein decrease. A lot of times naturally in those later years of life, we have decreased thirst, we will have decreased hunger. So if you are maybe taking care of an elderly parent or have a relative, just making sure that they're eating enough, because they lose those, their hormones aren't as strong that say I'm hungry, and might not eat as much or might not drink as much. Another thing, a lot of times as we get older, especially when if we're single or we lose our spouse, we might not want to cook. And so we end up eating a lot of the same foods over and over again. And the problem with that is that's when nutrient deficiencies happen, because if you're not eating a variety of different foods, then you're probably missing out on a group of multivitamins or a group of vitamins and minerals. So encouraging variety. Okay. Pregnancy, we have increased calorie needs. A lot of times pregnant women will gain a lot of weight. That's not necessarily necessary. Most of the time as we go through the trimesters, you might need 300 to 500 calories more per day, which really isn't that much. And then with breastfeeding, your needs are about 500 calories extra per day. And you will feel a lot hungrier, but you need to take prenatal vitamins, especially to get those essential fatty acids, so those omegas and those omega fatty acids, because our bodies don't make those. And then they have increased needs for the B vitamins, magnesium, phosphorus, iron, all that good stuff. All right, so like I said, it is important that we get a variety of fruits and vegetables. And I teach this to the kids that I teach, like, eat the rainbow, but adults need to eat the rainbow too. There's no doubt about it. And like I said, I usually see people that might need to take a multivitamin being the elderly population and the 20s population. Usually those are the two populations that will tend to find foods they like and continue to eat them, and aren't usually the ones that are going to be very adventurous with their culinary endeavors, and they might miss out on a whole set of nutrients. But I just wanted to show you, like I mentioned, each color provides different nutrients. So if you don't ever eat anything red or you don't ever eat anything green, you're going to be missing those things. If you've cooked with me before, you've heard antioxidants, antioxidants, antioxidants. I know all of these brightly colored foods are high in antioxidants, which are important to prevent serious illnesses like cancer. And I emphasize that. But the yellow and the oranges, they really help with that vision and eye support. So getting your kids to eat that type of thing. Those oranges and reds are really important for immune support because again, they're really high in that vitamin C. But they're also needed for bone and teeth. It helps with the absorption of that calcium. The dark purples or blues are good for our brain health, memory, inflammation. Reds are good for heart health, cancer prevention, and then our green ones are good for our bone and teeth and cancer prevention. I added a little picture here and it didn't stay. It was a picture of a little girl turning away from her plate. So you can use your imagination. All right, so picky eaters. This does not matter what age you are. We are all picky eaters. For those of you that cook with me, I really don't ever share this, but I'm an extremely picky eater. I just really am. There are a lot of foods that I do not like and I want to like them. Okay, I'm a dietitian. I should love avocados. Avocados are so good for you. I don't like avocados at all. So here are some things that you can do and that I need to do. So one, this is for your spouse or for your kids, but adding a food that one doesn't like to a meal that they do like. So things into the mac and cheese, things into the spaghetti and meatballs. My one son that is a terrible picky eater, I will blend any vegetable into any and every vegetable. I'll make tomato sauce and I'll straight up put carrots, bell peppers, mushrooms, tomatoes, spinach, and then I put it in the blender and I let that blender like blend forever till it's smooth and red and looks like tomato sauce. So if you need to sneak some in while they're younger, that's fine. Same thing with my smoothies. I know that he will not eat things that are green except for if it's a smoothie because, you know, that whatever, but it's kind of adding things in just to make sure that they are getting balanced intake. Limiting meal times to 30 minutes. If you have a really picky eater, don't let them sit there for 3 hours. They're dictating meal time. You need to just keep it, you know, at a normal family meal time. Like I said, praising when they try new foods, getting them involved in grocery shopping or cooking. And this goes for like the younger kids to bigger kids. Like I said, they're going to take a little bit more pride if they've been involved in the process. So giving that a try, and then don't make an extra meal. I'm sorry. My 3-year-old he just turned 4 like 2 days ago. It's like, usually I can get him to eat at least 1 or 2 things on his plate, but I don't make an extra meal. That kid is hungry. And what happens after dinner, if he is still hungry, he is only allowed to have a fruit or a vegetable. There's no other snacks after dinner. And that's just my rule. That's what works for me. All right. So I have some extra comments. Yes, I never make an extra meal. Elizabeth, I am not a short order cook. I can't, you know, I don't have the patience for that. Plus you making an extra meal is just kind of letting them know that it's okay to do that. Now you're their parent, you know them better. If I say something that you don't do, you know your kids the best. So do what is right for you and your family. But generally, when it comes to picky eaters, making an extra meal is kind of encouraging it. Okay, I think some people, Michelle, can you type what you're typing? Anyone, it has to be into the group chat or I can't read it because that thing, I can't open it while this presentation's up. I think were you asking for a copy of this? If you were, leave your email and I can send you the PowerPoint that I have, but we are recording this if you want to watch it again later. Okay, so our biggest battle, and I am talking too much, so I'm going to have to start talking a little bit faster, but our biggest battle is this, the good stuff. Let's be real. I am a very real life dietitian. I eat pizza. I will occasionally eat fast food. I love wine. And all of it can be part of a healthy diet because the majority of the time I'm eating great. I'm drinking enough water. But I do want to live life and I don't want to ever feel like I can't have things. So we need to teach our families that these foods are okay. but these are not our go-to foods. These foods really, if you can limit them being in your pantry. I don't buy, this is my personal thing. I don't buy chips. We usually, like, as a salty food, we have popcorn and we have pretzels. It will get you that crunch and it will get you that saltiness that you're looking for, but it is lower in fat. I pop my own popcorn. Those are better options. And like I said, I usually offer my kids, if they say they're hungry, a fruit or vegetable first. Next, like they make those yogurt tubes. I'll offer them one of those, and then we'll go into the more processed foods. The reason that these are the problem, it's not just because they're high in fat. It's not just because they're high in calories. It's not, it is the ingredients that are added to them. So companies want their food products to last for a long time. And so they add things like preservatives and dyes and trans fats and additives and colors. And those things affect our children. There are direct correlations between certain food dyes and ADHD. There's direct correlations between certain preservatives like nitrates, which are found in a lot of times in lunch meats. With children, it's very bad for them. It can cause headaches, bloating, anger, mood issues. Same thing with trans fats. Many studies have shown diets high in processed foods, people are more likely to be depressed or just generally not as happy and not feeling as good. It's because we look to these foods so often rather than picking out foods that are not processed. Again, if your kid has a bag of chips after his soccer game on Saturday morning, that's not the end of the world, but he shouldn't be having a bag of chips 2 times a day. Like, you know what I mean? It's balance and moderation. He really, or she should really be focusing on getting foods that they enjoy. So when I tell you that I offer fruits and vegetables first, it doesn't always go over well. You know, my kids like are normal kids. They're not like, oh, vegetables, yay. I go ahead, I make like this yogurt dip. It's like Greek yogurt with a little bit of French onion packet, which I know has a lot of salt in it, but anyways, it's a good way to get them to get a little dairy. And then they're more, because they like it. So they're at least willing to eat some sort of vegetable, or they'll dip their pretzels in that. So trying to limit these for children and adults, because they directly affect our energy level, our mood, and our, everything. All right, family dinners. It's not easy. I know. I'm finally getting into the age of sports. I get it. My husband also is a director at a very large bottling company. So he works a lot, but family dinners are very important. And it is a good way to teach kids how to eat. I know it sounds crazy because your kids already know how to eat, but one thing is we don't want to be distracted. So no one has their phones. We want to talk to each other. We want to enjoy the food. We want to, again, listen to those hunger cues. When you're eating together, you're more likely to slow down, which leads to less calorie intake. We all have been there where we have just like woofed down a meal and like we've overeaten because we've eaten so fast. And that's because we're not pausing and enjoying our company and being present in the moment. So sounds a little corny, but like really trying to make it an effort, even if it's twice a week, family dinner, one dinner, not multiple dinners. But it also builds like a nice lasting relationship. All right. So family meal planning. All right. If you have stubborn family members or you have children ages 8 up, they can pick a meal. Those kids, I'm only looking at because I'm trying to see how much time I can spend on each side. If you have kids that are old enough to read and Google, because Lord knows kids, I feel like my 6-year-old could Google if I told him how, or told him, they can pick recipes. Try a new recipe together every week. Teach them. Maybe you pick a recipe from Singapore. Teach them, Singapore is here on a map. Teach them. It is an opportunity to teach them so many things. They can learn. They're, like I said, they're using math, tablespoons, teaspoons, cups. They're learning great life skills. So yes, try, like I said, trying new recipes together. Even if you're the one to pick the new recipes, give them 3 options, let them choose it. Again, it's a good way to learn about new foods and introduce new habits into your family. Don't make more than 1 meal. With my 6-year-old, he's a great age. He is curious about certain fruits and vegetables. I take him grocery shopping with me. And I'll say, Ray, can you go get an avocado? And then I tell him, you gotta squeeze it a little bit. You don't want it to be mushy. I teach him these skills and he learns, okay, avocados grow, in this climate, on this kind of tree, it's really cool, the things that you can teach your kids. And then get your kids in the kitchen. If your kid is over 10, they can be using a knife, believe it or not. They can be using a stove with supervision. If you're not comfortable with it, have them next to you while you're doing it. There are jobs for all. Make them cook. They can do it, I promise. And they will take so much pride in it. They really will. All right. Anyone out there that has kids or like has grown-up kids, did anyone make their kids cook? Does anyone's kids cook? I actually purchased this. It's essentially like an easy bake oven. Next time I'm in doing a cooking demo for you, which is soon, I think I have one coming up for you. But anyways, I have this teeny tiny oven and I got it from Crate & Barrel. It was $20. It's called a Dash oven and it's this big. It's very small and it makes toast. We can make toast in a hole or eggs in a basket. I don't know. It's like the egg in the bread. You can make like 1 cookie. It's very small, but my kids learn how to, there's little tongs that take it out, but it's a real oven. Like adults could use it. It's not like an easy bake oven, but it's given my 6-year-olds a great sense of independence, like learning this is hot, learning what's cooked, what's not cooked. And it's very, very basic and elementary, and he loves it. My 11-year-old cooks mac and cheese. Absolutely. And you know what? I bet he's proud of it when he does it, or she. That's great. And you have to read, even if it is a box of mac and cheese, they have to read 3 tablespoons of milk, 2 tablespoons of butter. They're using skills. Okay. Be a role model. You can't tell your kid to eat healthy, or you can't be like, here's broccoli on your plate, and then you have French fries as a side. You need to be the role model. You need to be the one that is setting these examples. It just has to happen. I read this quote the other day that really resonated with me, and I'm going to butcher it. So this is not exactly how it went, but it was like, if you ask a parent, they want to be healthy. Like parents all the time want to be healthy. They want to make good choices. They want to do what's best for their children. Parents are always going to want to do what's best for their children. The quote went on to, then why do you continue to make poor food choices? You're going to decrease your lifespan. You're not setting them up for success later in life. And that's what it comes down to. So do what's best for your kids. Start to eat healthier yourself. And it doesn't have to be like a kitchen overhaul today. It could just be like adding a salad once a week as a side, putting oatmeal out instead of really high sugar cereal. So if you want to do what's best for your children, one of those things is making healthier food choices for yourself, but also so your kids see it and will make healthier choices as well. And that's it's blunt, and I might be coming across like too aggressive when I say it, but it's so true. And I say it, I was a dietitian for years in a hospital setting. I spent about 5 years in the med surge, which is just like the normal, if you have a problem and you're admitted, and in the ICU. And people were having heart attacks. People were, get new diagnosis of diabetes. And so many of those have to do with those food choices. And I said, my 3 or 4 minute diet education really fast in the hospital, they're not listening. They're not I want to get out of the hospital setting and teach people how to do this, how to stop this before it even happens, because I don't want you guys in the hospital. Your kids don't want you in the hospital. All right. So I don't know how old you guys are. I'm in my 30s. Let's just put it there. And I remember in elementary school, we'd stand against the wall in the lunch line, and there was the pyramid. Do you guys remember the pyramid? Yes or no? Do you remember the pyramid, the food guide pyramid? And it would be like all these like grains on the bottom, and then protein, and then dairy, and then fat, or whatever it was. But it was confusing. What it came out to be was confusing, and it gave off, like, oh, we should eat a lot of carbs. Oh, like what proteins are good. It was, after doing all these years of studies, it wasn't easy to understand or translate. So back in the Obama administration, Michelle Obama made healthy eating a priority as her like campaign and what she wanted to do. And she worked My Plate. And this is very cool because it's clear. It is clear. The idea is to eat half of your plate from fruits and vegetables. Now, you're probably not having a quarter of your plate, your breakfast plate, from vegetables. That's okay. This is just a general, this is what we're going to aim for. The protein is small because, again, we don't need a ton of protein. Do you guys want to do a math equation? I can roughly tell you how much protein you need. If you do. If you don't, it doesn't matter to me. But if you remember when I was talking about the kids, and then we went into the 1920s, adults only need like 5 or 6 ounces of protein a day. And we are like severely overcompensating for that. So I don't know. If you guys want to, we can do it at the end. But I can tell you, you just do it yourself on a calculator or something, but I'll tell you what numbers to put in there. All right. So going back to that slide that had all the good food on it, the pizza and M&Ms and all that yummy stuff. Promoting balance and moderation. It's okay to have cake at birthday parties. It's okay to go out for a pizza dinner, but we also need to be eating, the majority of what we need to be eating needs to be good for our bodies so that we feel good, we have energy. I mean, if you think about it, if you're an adult and you go to work without eating, and you're not going to have the most amount of energy. Okay, so we'll do the math problem at the end. If you want to do it, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. So if you go to work and you didn't eat breakfast, you're not going to perform very well. Or if you had fast food for lunch, you're probably going to lose energy about 2 hours later. Fast food generally doesn't have a lot of fiber. It digests very quickly. So you're going to crash at some point, meaning you're just going to run out of energy. So we don't want to do that for our kids either. Emphasizing healthy foods, you're going to feel better throughout the day. You're going to have more energy. You're going to be better at sports. I also work with kids' sports teams, mainly high school, just to kind of teach them, like, if you're eating Doritos before an event, or if you're drinking a Coca-Cola before, you're not helping your case. All right, so set yourself up for success. No distractions while eating. I mean this. No TV on. Kids should not be sitting in front of the TV with a bag of chips. Neither should you. You are not going to know how much you're eating. You're not going to enjoy that food. And it's going to lead to eating more food. So no distractions, no phone. Try and eat by yourself or with someone in a clear headspace. Meal planning. You can't eat healthy if healthy food is not there. So my number one thing I recommend, and I push it all the time, it's probably annoying how much I push it with my clients, but it's meal planning. Set it on Saturday mornings. I get up, I get my cup of coffee, and I grocery shop online. I look what's on sale. I go through the ad online, and then I put in whatever is on sale and I make meals from that. That's just how my brain works. But if you don't have the healthy food to eat healthy, you can't eat healthy. So you need to start with meal planning and actually like having a menu. For me, I go to the grocery store. I do a big grocery store haul once a week. I just do, it's called Click List. I put it in and then I drive up and they put it in my car. And then about halfway through the week, I usually go and get some more produce. But that's just how it works for me. It doesn't take a ton of time. I also find shopping online. I like love a good deal. And a lot of times I like buy things because I don't need them, but just because they're a good deal. And so like, I find if I go to the grocery store and see good deals, I buy food I don't need. So I like just focusing, it's less temptation for me if I am just like typing in certain words into the grocery store, like chicken breast. I'm not like walking past all of, anyways, that's just works for me. Keep healthy snacks on hand. Those should be the ones that you should be offering yourself and your kids first. Choose restaurants with healthy menu options so that you can kind of, if you want to get something that's maybe not as healthy, like the fries, we'll choose a healthier protein option, that balance of moderation. And then keep a water bottle close by so you're hydrating throughout the day. So is water next? Yes. Okay. I want to get to my water notes because I don't have the amount of water kids need memorized. Generally for adults, we need about half of our body weight in water. So or in ounces. So if you're 120 pounds, you need about 60 ounces of water per day. Now that changes depending on if you live in a very humid climate, if maybe you were visiting, I'm going to Colorado this weekend to the mountains. My hydration needs are going to be higher because altitude is one thing that can affect. If you're sick and have had nausea or vomiting, that will increase, or vomiting or diarrhea, that will increase your fluid needs. And then sports will increase your fluid needs. So for us, I said about half our weight in ounces. For kids, 1 to 3 years old need 4 cups of fluid a day. 4 to 8 year olds need 5 cups of fluid a day, and 7 and 8 or older, or 7 to 8 cups for older kids. Now, if they are doing a lot of sports, that will increase. If they're sweating a lot, there's a lot of ways that increases. This isn't just water. This is all fluid throughout the day. And then I'll talk about sports drinks on my next slide. The best rule of thumb is I usually say drink water throughout the day so that you don't confuse appetite with hunger, because that is one thing that really does, especially kids, because thirst is a weird thing to explain. If you tried to like explain something to a small person, it is hard. And trying to explain thirsty is hard. So a lot of times I can't tell when my just turned 4-year-old is thirsty. And lucky for me, my boys aren't good at flushing the toilet. So I know maybe one of you was laughing because you have boys at home and they just don't flush. I don't know what's wrong with them. But a great way to teach kids to check ourselves, and if we do care for elderly, at least reminds them, our urine should not be clear. Clear is you're overhydrated. It's very hard to overhydrate. So that's very unlikely, but you can overhydrate. Our urine should be a pale, pale, pale yellow, like lighter than lemonade. Anything darker than lemonade is dehydrated. If your urine is dark yellow, you need to drink water. I also like to mention in this that caffeine is a diuretic, which means makes you need to pee. And so is alcohol. So if like you went to a celebration and had a couple of whatevers, you need to drink a little bit more to kind of counteract that hydration. All right, I need to move fast. All right, nutrition label. I'm going to go fast through this. Sorry, it gets distorted when I have to upload it into Zoom. So nutrition labels, a good rule of thumb. I always recommend starting with the serving size. Don't really right off the bat look at the fat or the calories. You need to figure out what the serving size is first. I always also recommend don't worry so much about the percentages because that's based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Most of us don't need 2,000 calorie diet. I need more, you might need less, someone else might need more. So don't worry about those side percentages. General rule of thumb, we want our saturated fat to be 0%. We want our saturated fat to be less than 10% of our daily calories and trans fat to be 0%. Sodium, we don't want to have more than 2,300 milligrams per day. Sugars, added sugars, where it says sugar alcohols, I try and use like free, like legal things in my presentation. And this was the only legal nutrition label I could put up here because I get all my pictures from some software. But anyway, that where it says sugar alcohols, it should say added sugar. So you don't want more than 10% of your daily calories from added sugar. And then protein, again, really don't focus on that percentage. And then at the end, when we calculate our calories, you'll have a better idea. So sugar is added to things that we might think are healthy, like yogurt. A great example is Chobani. Their Greek yogurt is a more expensive Greek yogurt on the shelf. Well, their blueberry Greek yogurt has 11 grams of added sugar. Women, we don't need any added sugar, but we shouldn't have more than 25 grams in a day. And men, I think it's 35. But anyways, you don't want to eat half of your added sugar in a day from a yogurt when you're eating yogurt to be healthy. So really look, a Cliff Bar, which is a healthier, more expensive type of granola bar, has 20 grams of added sugar. So women, that would be almost your entire day. Granola has a ton of added sugar. Although it is honey, it is still added sugar. It's still extra calories. Gatorade. 20 ounces of Gatorade has 36 grams of added sugar. Gatorade or sports beverages are only indicated after an hour of vigorous activity or you've been sweating a lot. It is meant to replace your electrolytes, not just to hydrate yourself. So it has things like salt and potassium in there to bring your electrolyte balance back together. So just don't drink Gatorade just to drink Gatorade. It has its time and place. Now, if you were doing a sporting event, like a long distance run, you might want that added sugar for some extra energy, but sports drinks are usually not used correctly. Like they really are for athletes. Be careful with smoothies, alcoholic drink mixers, peanut butter. If you're not choosing a form of peanut butter that is just peanuts and oil, it can have a lot of, but tomato sauce is another one. There's 10 grams of added sugar in one serving of Prego tomato sauce. All right, I got to scoot through this real fast. What to look for? You want a short ingredient list. You want words that you can pronounce, and you want to try and find words like whole grains or any type of whole wheat towards the beginning of the ingredient list. You don't want long ingredient lists. You want to avoid anything that says trans or hydrogenated. Those are very bad fats for us. And avoid artificial dyes, colors, high fructose corn syrup, all of that stuff. Decreasing our salt intake, limiting lunch meats, buying low sodium canned foods, rinsing your canned foods. If you do like canned green beans, rinsing them doesn't really help because they absorb a lot of that salt. So yes, a general rule of thumb for when you are shopping, shop the perimeter of the grocery store. Usually those are the less processed things. So like the fruits, vegetables, dairy, meats, cheeses, all of that. Down the center aisles are usually the worst. And then making sure that you're teaching your kids about food safety, like not to touch raw chicken breasts, washing your hands, changing your cutting boards, all of that. I always recommend when you are making changes to start with baby steps. Don't become a healthy family overnight or it's not going to stick. So making swaps one at a time. All right. Last but not least, before we do protein, I work with Be More. If you guys are on social media, especially Instagram. Follow Be More Health Coaching on Instagram. It has that little logo, but we do giveaways for things. I do a bunch of recipes. Like this week, we're offering some free workout classes, free meditation classes. But I encourage you guys to follow us because number one, it's me that does it. And number two, I just like getting to know you guys, especially because we've done so many events with you, and like getting feedback on what you want to learn more about. So helpful or not? Sorry, I had to run through the last presentations. I started a few minutes late because so many people were coming on late. So usually I don't have to run through those last ones as much. Okay, so protein. All right, let's say as long as you're not over like considered like obese, but usually if you're even if overweight or of a normal body weight, you would take your weight. So type your weight into a calculator. And then it's going to be a lot of things. So stay with me. Your weight divided by your weight in pounds divided by 2.2. And that's giving you your weight in kilograms. You're going to divide that weight you're going to multiply that weight in kilograms by 28. And that number should be like 1,700, 1,800, 1,900, something like that. 2,000, 2,200. That's the amount of calories roughly you need in a day to withstand or like stay your current weight. So now you're going to multiply that number by 0.2. Okay. And that number should be like a couple hundreds, I think. And then you should divide that by 4. And that should give you how many grams of protein you need in a day, I think, as long as you're somewhere between 50 and 90. Did anyone do it with me? And was it somewhere between like 50 and 90? And I can start at the beginning. Okay. 122. It's a little high, but that's fine. But usually that's how I recommend protein needs and all that stuff. It is, but the easier way to do it is 20% of your calories. So whatever you eat in a day, 20% of it should be protein. So once you get that 20%, whatever that number is, if it's 400 calories, you would divide that by 4 because there's 4 calories per gram. And so that would give, so if you need like 400 calories of protein, you would divide it by 4, and then it would give you your grams of protein. I know it's like a real long equation, but that's what dietitians, everything is equations to us. So just a rough estimate. 122 is a bigger number. You probably wouldn't need that much unless if you're a pretty active person. You could probably get away with a little bit less than that. All right. Any other questions? I'm sorry I ran over. If not, that is all. And this presentation will be available for you. I send out the recording. So yeah. And if you needed a copy of the actual presentation, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn or Instagram or whatever, and we can get it on to you, or whoever organized can reach out to me and we can make sure that you get it. Or if you have any questions, I'm happy to help. All right, so I'm going to go. You guys have a good rest of your day, and I will see you next time because I'm sure there's a next time very soon. All right, thank you guys so much.